lowercasejake here, no filler. I'm going to talk about Jojo Rabbit. Jojo Rabbit is a film directed by Taika Waititi. It's about a young boy living in Germany whose imaginary best friend is Hitler, yeah, and it's about his relationship with a young Jewish girl living in his house, hiding from the Nazis. I don't want to get too much into the plot as I want to stay relatively spoiler free, although I will touch on it a little bit through the video, but there won't be any spoilers in this video. So I want to start by saying I really like this film overall. Some of it may sound a bit serious when I'm talking about it, but first and foremost, this film is a comedy, and you should always think about it as a comedy when I'm talking about these more serious points. The tone is pretty consistent throughout. I think the first act, the comedy's a bit hit or miss at points, but the pacing's pretty, not breakneck, but it keeps the pace going, so you're never left to linger on the jokes that fall a bit flat too long. The second and third act both hit the comedy and the tragedy pretty head on, I think, because there is tragedy in this. I think Taika Waititi is a director where he always fuses tragedy and comedy. You know, he makes light of situations that are fairly tragic in nature. I think the balance in this film is perfectly done, as I think he's got a very good knack for that by now. The comedy heightens the tragedy and the tragedy heightens the comedy. It works both ways, and I think in this film they really play to each other's strengths and you get the best of both worlds here. The actor who plays Jojo, I think his name's Roman, I'm gonna have to look this up, Roman Griffin Davis. He is excellent in this film. The guy's 11 years old and his performance is really solid in this film. I think Taika Waititi's had child actors previously, they've all been really strong. I don't know if it's casting directors, but clearly he's very capable of getting performances out of young actors, and I just want to give a big shout out to him because he was really good in this film. Taika Waititi as Hitler is pretty good. He's, it's nothing groundbreaking, but he's got a very good comedic timing and delivery, which goes with his writing, so it's not bad, it's pretty good overall. I want to give a shout out to Scarlett Johansson as well, because she, like in every film, is excellent. She's a great actress, and in this film she really gives a heartwarming performance, and I think it's really good. Also, Sam Rockwell and Alfie Allen's sort of relationship in this film is one of my favourite running gags that the film does. I really enjoyed that. So I feel like this film comes at a different angle than most films would. So Taika Waititi finds a lot of comedy in places that normally it'd be a bit taboo to find them. It's not like he's pointing fun at the events that happened, it's more pointing out sort of flaws in the hypocrisy within the Nazi party. I also like the way Germany is portrayed in this film. I remember in an interview him talking about how even though they were losing the war, they're very into their fashion and their architecture and the current trends to sort of hide the facade that Germany was really losing the war, and it was fucking horrific. And Germany in this film is really beautiful. The buildings are colourful, the colours are bright and vibrant, everyone is dressed like really fucking well, it kind of slaps. I also think it plays into the idea that we're seeing this film through a child's eyes. It kind of heightens the tragedy of the film when you think about some of the horrific things that are happening, and the fact that we're seeing this through a child's eyes kind of plays into that, I think. To touch on some of the more technical things, I think the use of Hitler as a storytelling device is sort of very appropriate in a way. He sort of plays the devil on Jojo's shoulder, his mother sort of plays the angel, and it sort of brings out or challenges Jojo to be the worst version of himself, to live up to, what he's supposed to be. Sort of the young Nazi. He wants to be the exemplary Nazi for everyone, while his mother sort of encourages him to be, the most tolerant and open and accepting person, and that's sort of who he is. He isn't a Nazi at heart, and I think by having this Hitler as an imaginary friend, Hitler sort of stands as a representation of the sort of hysteria and the kind of paranoia around it, sort of the propaganda that fed into many young men being misled at this time to think, what a great guy Hitler was and how people aspired to be like him. When we meet Elsa, the Jewish girl living in his house, she acts as a challenge to Hitler, and him, all the things he says about Jewish people, she sort of challenges him and challenges Jojo to question his ideals and what he thinks is right, really, and what he wants to become. We see the relationship of Elsa and Jojo sort of blossom as he comes to accept become a more accepting and tolerant person. And Jojo's sort of conflicted between his relationship with Hitler. Can't believe I'm saying that. And we see a conflict between Jojo's relationship with Hitler and his relationship with Elsa, and they sort of take on opposing trajectories during the film. Elsa challenges what he already knows, and it teaches him to reevaluate what he thinks is right. I feel like Jojo as well represents sort of the young man in Germany at the time, whose mind is so malleable. Having voice cracks at 21. His mind is malleable, and he gets blown away by all this sort of pressure and hysteria, and becomes something that he never would have become normally under normal circumstances. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's a very heartfelt film. Sort of mixture of comedy and tragedy. Gives a heartwarming and a heartbreaking take on the Second World War from a different perspective than we'd normally see. And the pacing of this film helps to just keep it at a consistent pace. You're never left lingering too long on a scene, or you're never left thinking, God, I wish I had a bit more of that. In my opinion, it's not as good as Hunt for the Wilder People, which I think is really top draw. I'd sort of put it on a level in terms of quality with What We Do in the Shadows, and at the moment I'd slightly lean more towards What We Do in the Shadows, but that's just my opinion. So overall, I'm going to give this film a 1, 2, 3.5 out of 5. Let me know if you have any thoughts about this film. If you have any feedback, like you hate my face, or you hate, whatever, or you thought something was good maybe, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm going to start doing more of these. I think it's a good way I can just sort of focus my thoughts. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See you later.